Hello, you're listening to the Gambling Files podcast, the podcast that's never shit its pants on air. Is that true, though, Fintan?
I know I haven't.
Exactly. There's always a little doubt there, isn't there? I must have told you that. What good story could possibly come from a discussion about whether I've shat my pants on air too? I must have told you a story about. I'm probably not going to share that story thinking about it. I'm going to have a fit of maturity. So let's just...
People could be eating their breakfast right now listening to this, John.
Exactly.
So
they could be having bran. But have you ever wondered, see, when you start looking at the addition of sugar into things, one of the most shocking things I learned was that all bran has quite a lot of sugar in. So imagine how it would taste without sugar.
Have you ever ordered McDonald's fries without salt?
Why would you even do that?
I did it once, and it was my nod to, I'll be healthy. I'll get the fries without the salt. It's like ordering like a Diet Coke kind of thing, right, with a massive meal. And then you just realize that McDonald's fries are just salt. They're
Salt
just a delivery mechanism for salt, and actually they were the most horrible things in the world without salt.
If you're going to have fast food fries, you've got to have In-N-Out burger fries. They're seriously good. West Coast American chain. Very, very good. But listen, right? I have a bone to pick with everybody that peddles this idea that salt is unhealthy. Salt is not only healthy, it's absolutely essential for health. And the problem is not consuming salt. The problem is not consuming salt. The problem is consuming processed foods that contain salt that you can't taste. Because your taste is your body's way of regulating the amount of salt that you consume. That's why you crave salty things and you stop craving salty things. That is your body saying, I've got enough, I don't need any more right now. But when you're eating it and you can't taste it, your body's like, well, I haven't had much salt lately, I should probably have a bit. And then you start getting issues. But if you actually just eat actual salt, I have fucking loads of salt on things. My blood pressure is perfect.
But it is one of those things, though. Then it's a lot of it's so much of this is also about labeling. So they'll say like, oh, with electrolytes, basically salt. But the one that gets me now is the protein bars, or like adding protein to stuff.
Yeah.
So like you'll have this like chocolate bar with as many calories as a Cadbury's bar or whatever, but because it's got 20 grams of protein, it's practically health food.
It's also not high protein in any other context. It's just higher than it might normally be. And I find that quite annoying. And I've only read this in one place, so I haven't actually sought out corroboration for it. This brilliant book called The Big Fat Surprise by an American journalist called Nina Teicholz. Fucking phenomenal book. It is a little bit dry, but I mean, it is a really fascinating book. And she deconstructs every major food study in the last 70 years. I mean, it is fucking stunning. Looks at who funded it, the data they left out, looks at the original source data, looks at what they left out and how leaving that out corroborated what they hoped to find, etc. But I'm pretty sure it's in that book. There is a point at which she says, or she quotes somebody as saying that a high protein diet without the sufficient quantity of fat is bad for you and very, very hard on your kidneys. So yeah, another reason why the low-fat diet, bollocks.
But isn't that the rabbit starvation? So if you only eat rabbit, you die because the meat is so lean.
I just don't know why you do that to yourself.
Well, presume if you're hungry.
We are built for fatty meats. And I'm not dissing
when you read
veganism.
Books like that, though. No, but it's when you read books like that, you realize, what's the thing? Like everything in moderation, and then just eat more fruit and vegetables is effectively the diet advice.
Yeah, I mean, fundamentally, avoid processed foods as much as you can, and try not to eat too much shit. But it's the definition of what is shit. But also this perception, and supermarkets are horribly guilty of this, that you can take a food that is perceived, or a food category that's not perceived as junk, but is complete. I mean, there are so many ultra processed vegan foods out there that just have no fucking nutritional value whatsoever. It's like anything that has to have vitamins added to it, you should probably avoid. But anyway, how do we get onto that? Fucking hell.
No idea. I have no idea.
Yeah, it's weird. We've got some great guests coming in the next few weeks. We really have. I just want to make a point. We are going to be at ICE, and we are going to be recording some podcast episodes while we're at ICE, because we've got a little room. So listen, if I sidle up to you at ICE, not you, Fintan, I'm speaking to the listeners. If I sidle up to your ICE and I slip a key in your pocket, it's to record something.
Podcast. It's to record a podcast. Let's just clarify that.
Oh yeah. Sorry, yeah. Thanks. Okay, all sorts of legal issues there.
Let's just get it on the record.
And so we're going to be recording a podcast. So if you've got a story to tell, if you want to say hello, then get in touch, please. We also, do you know what? I had a message from a listener this morning. Ooh, and they were saying that I can't believe you got Optimove as sponsors. And he said, I'm a huge fan of their product. He said, I've been using it for a while now. I've seen what they've got coming down the pipeline, he said, and it's amazing. And he's a fan of the podcast and a fan of Optimove. So for him, it's like manna from heaven.
Double whammy. Funnily enough, I was speaking to somebody about Optimove who uses Optimove with their team. Across multiple brands, and also a huge fan.
I think we're probably going to struggle to find people who aren't huge fans, because the demo. That's the thing. Like if you sponsor something like the Gambling Files podcast, sponsorships are available. Then it's one thing to just pay money and say and have your name read out or whatever, right? But what I like about the Optimove thing is that they've spent an hour and a half giving us a product demo. We've got more product demos in the pipeline as well, so we can see more of it.
Yeah.
They actually have the confidence to want us to understand this, so that we can evangelize from a perspective of knowledge. And I think that says a lot about the confidence they have in the product. Not so much the confidence in us, but the confidence in the product.
No, it's also an endorsement of us. It's this works two ways. As the gambling industry's largest podcast. But yeah, look, you can see why. Maybe we should say most influential rather than the largest. Most influential.
We're probably the longest as well. So longest, most influential,
longest running too,
and biggest. So we could probably just go like the South Park route and call ourselves Longer, Thicker, and Uncut, because we also don't edit. What?
This is why we've only got 2 sponsors, John.
Oh, yeah.
We could be rolling in that Athletics Greens money right now. NordVPN. But no.
Oh, damn it. No, you make a good point there, Fintan. Thanks. Sorry about that.
Yeah. It's okay. We'll dial it in. But no, Optimove guys have been great. The product's brilliant. Everybody I've spoken to about it has been as enthusiastic as I was after people are actually using it, as enthusiastic as I was after the demo, which blew my mind. And yeah, it's definitely, if you haven't checked it out, you want help with your CRM and marketing to your customers, it's the product to use. They're going to be at ICE.
Well, presumably you can get a demo at ICE, and I got to say, if you go to ICE, you get the demo, you'll probably come away with it saying what I did, which is basically that's just blown my fucking mind.
Yeah. So definitely contact the guys. They're at stand N5 110, N5 110. They've also said that if you mention the Gambling Files podcast, you'll get an Amazon voucher.
Why are you whispering that?
Because it feels like a secret.
Oh, okay,
It feels
sorry.
like, oh my God. But
I think
obviously them
they're
being
by
a
the
marketing
entrance.
company.
I think they're by the entrance to N5, which I think is right by where the Casino International stand is, which is my former employer's.
Oh, you can wave from them from the Optimove stand.
I might do that
As we
because
go
I'm
collect our
definitely
swag
going
bags.
to. I'm definitely going there to mention the podcast.
Yeah. And obviously we'll be at ICE, and that leads us very neatly onto our other fantastic sponsor, which
It's
is
just
Clarion Gaming.
seamless.
It's
like a
It's
leotard.
the hours we put into scripting.
It's like a cat suit, a spray-on PVC cat suit. No seams.
And they are running, obviously, ICE, London ICE 2024, and the IGB affiliate conference, also in London.
Is this 2024 the year that IGB affiliate moves, or is that 2025? Oh no, hang on. No, I might get my shows mixed up.
No, because
it's the one that's moving from Amsterdam.
Yeah, that's the IGB Amsterdam. And then I think they're switching stuff around. So it'll be still in Amsterdam this year. So it's still in London this year, still in Amsterdam this year, and then it's 2025. Things change.
Okay,
I believe.
Cool. Well, I'm glad you're switched.
Well, we'll have some. We've got some Clarion people coming on in the next week or so anyway, so we can.
We do
Clarify any confusions.
We can clarionify. See what I did there?
Look at you! Look at you! They'd pay a branding agency a fortune for that, John, and you're just giving it away for not a fortune.
I'm really not.
Tell you what, gold. That's the kind of gold sponsors of the Gambling Files podcast expect.
Speaking of gold, Fintan, there has been talk of, and stop me if I'm wrong, stop me if I'm wide of the mark. I've been hearing rumours that there is some Gambling Files merch. Is that true?
There is. So now that I've got a little bit more time on my hands, shall we say?
But you are chairman of the Gambling Files now.
I'm the chairman of you.
I need a good chairman. If I'm left to run wild, anything could happen.
Poor Johnny wakes up at like 7 a.m. and he's had 20 WhatsApp messages from Fintan.
Yeah, but that's only because you're up at 3 doing your meditation and drinking
my
your
journaling
juice.
and my
journaling, doing all your wellness
my alkalized
stuff.
water.
Exactly. Because you're a chairman, and that's what they do. Because they know that sacrificing today means that in a few years you'll reap the benefits of that in the shape of
or you'll be dead.
Sleep deprivation.
So one of the things we're doing, and the amazing Lorna has been wonderful with us with this.
Lorna Murphy, props.
Yeah, she's been absolutely wonderful. Is we now have some Gambling File podcast merchandise. So we've started simple. We've gone with the basics. We've got some mugs and we've got some laptop stickers. And we've done some test orders just to see what it actually looks like. Because obviously looking at it on screen is one thing, but you need to feel the merchandise, so to speak. The quality of the merch. And what we will be doing is hadn't planned on talk about this, but we'll do that.
Well, we can save it for next week. I mean,
no, it's all right. We'll do it. So for our guests that come on, we're going to send them a little thank you, and we're going to send them like a mug or some laptop stickers or something like that as a little thank you for coming on the podcast.
Wow, that's nice of us.
Yeah, I thought so.
Are we? Is any of this going to be available for sale or begging?
I don't know what the demand is for the. So
I'm just asking. Somebody's bound to ask at some point.
I'm sure we can sort. Like I've sent you enough that you can, hand out some stuff if you need to.
Ooh.
I hadn't planned on a shop just yet. I didn't
because I did get asked about merch this morning as well. I did, yeah.
Oh really?
I did.
All right. Well, I'll tell you what. People can message if there's demand for merch. Message us, and then I'll go set up. Because the way it's set up right now, I've got access to it and I can order it, but it's not like public facing, so I'd have to set up a little shop. But we could do that. However, if people give us great, because obviously we've gone super safe, right? We've done some laptop stickers and some mugs. If anybody's got a great idea for merchandise, and the funnier the better, please let us know, and we'll make that happen. If it's legal or possible or whatever in whatever country. So we're totally open for suggestions.
The more outlandish, the better.
Oh, like absolutely outrageous. I've got a couple of ideas, but I wanted to get Lorna just set up with the first stuff as a starter.
She has done lovely work. I did tell you she's very good.
She's excellent. So my idea to share, and we'll share it everyone, is I was thinking, so we got the heads kind of logo. Could she do something where it's like a Cobra Kai dojo style thingy or something? Can we merge without obviously infringing copyrights? Like turn into like a dojo thing.
That's good.
That was my idea. Which I would find funny, and maybe some of the longer term listeners might find funny.
I've just thought of one, but if anybody sensitive is listening, you might want to switch off now. What if you created some kind of double-use condom? Bear with me here.
Jesus Christ, John.
Now, using the logo and our two heads, you use one side first, and then you use the other side second.
So people, this is, yeah. So listeners with ideas, actual ideas, please let us know.
That counts as an idea. I didn't say it was a good one.
There's no such thing as bad ideas, people. Just, no, what was the South Park quote? There's no such thing as bad ideas, just stupid people.
It's got two thumbs and a dick.
But we'll do a creative session, John, as they say.
It's like the wonderful line from Heathers, where Winona Ryder takes the lunchtime poll over to Christian Slater's JD. Veronica, she says, so we do this lunchtime poll thing. I've got to ask you this stupid question. He says, there are no stupid questions. And she says, that guy, Ed, from the publisher sweepstake, gives you $1 million at the same time as aliens descend and announce they're going to obliterate planet Earth. You've got 10 minutes. What do you do with the money? And he just looks back at her and he says, that's the stupidest question I've ever heard. I've lost Fintan. What are you doing? We're on video, you know.
We're also massively behind schedule, so I'm messaging my next meeting that I'm going to be late.
Fucking chairman. Who's on the episode, Fintan?
I'm saying on a fucking message.
I'm trying to break you out of that. I'm breaking you out of that. Okay. Well, I can tell him.
We've got David Williams from the Rank Group.
We have got David
Director
Williams
of Public Affairs.
So David is with us to talk about his article, which was a Betting and Gaming Council blog post, I think.
It was, and it was called "Casino Reforms Are Needed More Than Ever."
Shit,
so this was a follow-on. This was a follow-on of his. So he's been doing this annual blog post now, which is, I remember last year's one was good as well.
It's a Christmas gift to the industry.
I'll take the socks.
Gambling Files Podcast socks.
On your feet. Sorry, David, we're only joking. So it makes a really good point, and he obviously goes into a lot of detail. But it's obviously we've got the white paper, it's consultations. We're now looking down. It's 2024. Things need to get moving. There's a lot of pressure on the land-based industry in a lot of other ways. These reforms are badly needed for the land-based industry, and he'd be too polite to say it, but he really needs people to pull their finger out and get cracking on this. And so it's that kind of call to arms, but he's far more eloquent and
he's
polished,
wonderfully
and all that kind of stuff.
Sort of erudite, and He's not verbose, but he's very eloquent in his
No.
speech.
He really is. And it was also quite funny because it was one of the first video episodes we've done. And then, like, immediately logging in, you realize me and John need a dress code. It's quite funny.
It's a very good
It was
call.
like, oh, we don't, this isn't the problem we used to have when we just did audio. But yeah, so he's
very well.
We've got to up our game, John. We have to up our game.
But it was genuine. It was a pleasure to meet him. It was really, really nice.
Yeah, he's lovely.
And also, but he gave a quite a compelling argument for the existence of the BGC, because I've been very scathing about them, but he put it very, very well. He was
great.
It made me almost reconsider my position. Almost.
The CEO role's open, and I'd nominate David straight after. Like, it'd be John first preference, David second preference.
Yeah, I wonder if the BBC are going to pick up on that, though.
Who knows? But no, look, it was super, super intelligent, ton of industry experience, very passionate about his role and the rank group. And he also, like, his, not just the BGC, but also the importance of the land-based and taking pride in the industry. And he had a comment about, like, basically keeping our chin up kind of thing. And I think they were really, really thoughtful. And it's nice to see somebody so passionate about their job. It was great.
It's true.
He's a great representative of the company.
Yeah, it's very nicely summarised, Fintan. So meet David and enjoy the episode. Well, after a swift costume change, we're back with another episode this week. We're joined by the probably excellent David Williams, Director Public Affairs of the Rank Group. So David is kind of a big deal around here. David, welcome.
Good afternoon. Thank you, guys.
So honestly, it's our pleasure.
It really is. So, John, do you know, just to completely derail this conversation straight out of the gate,
bring it,
that two of the people on this podcast have been featured in a book?
Now, I tell you what, I did know that, but this would make a really good odd one out round on Have I Got News for You? Because, right, okay. Let's just lay this out a little bit, right? Fintan, David, was featured. His name was used for a character in a book by a friend of mine. Because obviously it's the most absurd made-up name, Fintan Costello.
Right.
She was like, well, that
name generator.
That can't be fucking real. That's like somebody swallowed a travel Scrabble bag and vomited on the train. But you have been in a book, Good and Proper. Correct?
Yes, I have. I thought actually where you were going with that was going to be just to sort of compare my name, David Williams, to Fintan Costello and say the most fabulously exciting name contrasts with possibly the most boring name you could think of, David Williams.
We would never diss a guest.
Do you not? Oh,
to
right.
the face.
Yeah. No, we did that on the intro.
I've been lured here under false pretenses. I was hoping this might be a bit of fun, but okay. Yes, I think you're probably talking about Jilly Cooper's novel Mount, which quite extraordinary, really. Came as a complete surprise to me. So I met Jilly Cooper a dozen or so years ago. I think at either Royal Ascot or one of the Ascot meetings when she was in the Ladbrokes box. And I can't entirely remember why, but we were sort of guzzling away and we got on okay. And I thought she'd had far too much to drink, which she possibly had. And she said, I'm going to make sure I include you in my next book. And I thought no more of it. And then she published this book in, I think, 2016. And Jilly won't mind me saying this, her handwriting is absolutely atrocious. And she'd written and sent it to me, but it had got lost. The book had actually got lost somewhere within the Royal Mail. And it finally arrived at Ladbrokes headquarters, and I opened it up and I thought, I have no idea why I've got this book. And inside was this little card saying, you know, turn to pages, this page and that page and this page and that page. And she'd sort of written me in as David Williams. I wish I'd been sort of renamed Fintan Costello or something exotic, but unfortunately she kept my real name. And I was supposed to be having these conversations with the famous Rupert Campbell Black, who was, I can't remember what Mount was about, something about horses and sex.
Horses
And
and
I was
shaggy.
involved in the well, I was involved in the horses side of it, just for the purposes of the tape, and
That's a shame.
it was a relief in many ways, for want of a much better phrase. But
great publicity.
it was good fun. My mum is incredibly proud of this. And then I sort of get random people who I've not heard from for years saying, I'm on holiday and I'm reading Jilly Cooper's book. What the hell are you doing in here? And the truth is, I don't know. But Jilly is great fun. We still sort of swap Christmas cards and threaten to drink champagne each year and never get around to it. And her writing has deteriorated. I mean, she must be in her 80s now, but she is the most wicked fun. But why she chose to do that is beyond me.
I love it. I mean, I really love it, and there's something really generous in her doing that, and not just. I mean, and I'm not dissing Liz Hyder when I say this, because Liz is a very dear friend, but she hasn't just appropriated your name. She's you're included in it, kind of thing. But myself,
I am.
right?
And I have to say, I've not updated my LinkedIn profile for a long while, but I should update it to be basically Rupert Campbell Black's good friend, because officially I am Rupert Campbell Black's good friend. So that, I mean, frankly, nothing in the real world can possibly compare with being pals with that great hero of fiction.
You should create his LinkedIn profile and then connect with him.
Yeah. Could get in a bit of trouble with the lawyers. Good idea, though. Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
Let me put it on the medium to long term list of things to do.
Oh wow! So that's a polite no, John. Did you get that?
So I was chatting with my friend Liz, right? And
Right.
we both like. Are you familiar with the work of? This is probably a stupid question, David. You seem very well educated and you're beautifully dressed, so I'm pretty confident the answer is going to be no. Are you familiar with the work of a Mr. Garth Marenghi?
Not yet, John. No.
Okay. So it's the creation of a sort of comedy writer, director, and actor called Matthew Holness, who you might know. He's been in things like The Office and the IT Crowd and things like that. And he created this sort of persona of a sort of a trashy horror author with this sort of larger than life sort of personality, utterly self-inflated, grandiose sort of character, just completely convinced of his own brilliance, based quite closely on certainly one particular author from the 1980s, in my opinion. She said, and he wrote a book. I think he's done a couple. I mean, he actually wrote a book as the character in the perfect style of 1980s horror. It's very, very well done. And Liz had got this book in hardback, and I was thinking, should I get it in hardback? I'll probably wait for the paperback. And I thought I'd enjoy it, but I'll wait for a bit. And then Liz is like, "Oh, I've got it. I've got the hardback, so I'm going to start it now." Next day, I get a text from her saying, "You need to buy this book now." I'm like, "Yeah, I'll get round to it at some." No, buy the book. So I'm like, another message. It's got such a complete what the fuck moment in it that I guarantee you'll read it and you'll say, "What the fuck?" So I'm like, I'm pretty intrigued. So I buy the book, and the book arrives fairly promptly. And I start reading it, and it's, stylistically perfect. It's highly amusing. And there's a part in it where the main character seeks the counsel of his best friend. Right? And my surname is highly unusual. There are names that are a bit like it, but Bruford is seriously uncommon surname. he goes to seek the counsel of his best friend, Bruford. So I'm reading that, I'm like, fuck.
Okay.
Wow, that's really unusual. But it's not really a what the fuck moment. When the next chapter begins, it emerges that his best friend Bruford is in fact a psychic dugong.
Jesus Christ, where the fuck is this going?
So you two may have been in a book, but I'm a fucking psychic dugong, motherfuckers.
A psychic dude.
And
For
that
those-
brings to the end this version of Gambling Files.
So
Like and subscribe.
yeah, share. I wonder if Cher had a podcast, would she be like share, like and subscribe? Because then it's got a double meaning.
Sure. She's still
Yeah.
alive.
Yeah,
Very much so. Very much so.
she's probably still dining out and having babysat Anthony Kiedis because he's still dining out on her having babysat him. I mean, not that they need to dine out
She
on
did
that
it.
because they're both reasonably wealthy.
I suspect so. And I think she's either just recently published or about to publish another book, which I think is to do with, I think she's sort of deviated from equestrian pursuits and gone into the world of football. Tackle, there you go, it's called Tackle. I don't know if it's been published yet. But anyway, I've not received a copy. She probably sent it to my old job anyway, but there you go.
If
So-
Cher did a show with possibly there must be a drag Cher performing somewhere in the world, probably in Las Vegas. But if they did a show together, a co-headline show, it could be called Cher and Cher Alike.
Yeah, could be.
Anyway,
Could
so
Let me just
David,
check
the
what I
reason...
agreed to here. Let me
Where's the disclaimer I just signed?
just think of it.
I've got
my
no right
calendar
to
to see
what. But David, the reason that we asked you on the podcast, right, is, and just in case this is in case this is flowing a bit funny to people listening, we are getting some freezing and stuff as we record it, so who knows how this is actually going to turn out. But you wrote a I don't know what's called it really, a missive, a personal plea, a demand, a manifesto, suggesting that the reforms to gambling in Britain should probably get a bit of a wriggle on. Is that a fair summary?
Yeah, so I think this refers to the I think it's a blog. Was it a blog? Don't know. You guys are the experts.
It was a blog on the Betting and Gaming
Betting and
Council's
Gaming
website.
Council.
Is the one
That's
I wrote.
right. That's right. So I did one last Christmas, and then I did one again this most recent Christmas. And the theme last Christmas was, we'd seemingly been waiting for the publication of a white paper for what felt like an eternity, and then it got published, of course, at the end of April. And I think broadly, if you actually look at the outputs of that in the round, I think land-based casinos and land-based bingo operators were broadly happy with the contents of it. And soon after that, might even have been on the day, or certainly within days of it being published at the end of April, the kind of narrative from government was that it would take square brackets 12 months, the best part of a year, or up to a year, to have some of these modernizations, certainly in the case of the land-based sector, delivered. What then followed have been, as we know, a series of consultations. There was and our argument sort of last summer was, okay, that's fine. We totally understand the need to get the consultations done. This is about getting it right, implementing it correctly, all of that sort of future-proofing good stuff. But please, can we have ours as soon as possible? Because this is the good stuff that the industry is looking for. Please, can this be sort of prioritized? And as it happened, the land-based consultation, both from the DCMS consultations and the Gambling Commission-led consultations, the first one to hit its deadline, 4th of October, and I'll never forget that, was the land-based consultation. So, in a sense, we are one of, if not the first, sort of taxi on the rank in terms of trying to get stuff done. And why this matters is, if you look ahead through sort of calendar year 2024, the industry, and I'm happy to talk about any part of the industry, but if I just sort of were to focus on land-based casinos, there are guaranteed costs rattling down the line. And we don't fall out with any of them. There are increases to the national minimum wage coming in April. There is almost certainly a statutory levy, which is going to sort of see ratcheted increases in payments. We know a whole heap of other costs are coming down the line. Now, the recovery out of the pandemic for land-based has been slower, certainly than we would have hoped and that we might have expected. And the only way you can withstand those additional costs is to grow your revenue. And the most obvious way that we can grow our revenue in the near term is to get the modernizations delivered out of the white paper, whether that be the implementation of sports betting in the UK. The UK is the only country in the world that doesn't have legalized sports betting in its venues, whether it be the harmonization of gaming machine numbers compared to the 2005 Act. These are all things that are customer-led. They're not enormously controversial. They've all been sort of sanctioned in the white paper, but we need them to happen. And there are a number of risks in 2024, some that are obvious and some which are perhaps sort of certainly beyond our control. So this kind of message, which is sort of keep the foot to the floor, we're waiting for the response to the consultation, let's just get on with this and make it happen, is a bit of a plaintive cry. We don't doubt that DCMS officials are working extremely hard to get this right, and we don't want to come across as impatient, but there is an urgency to this. There is an urgency to getting these modernizations over the line so that, not least, so that one of the purposes of the Gambling Act review, which was to bring a degree of levelling up to land-based compared to online, can actually be realised. So that was a bit of a long-winded answer.
No, it's an excellent answer. And I suppose when we look at the risks of 2024, is one of the biggest risks the chance of a general election, and then everything resets, or do you feel there's other bigger, apart from the cost aspect on the business, on the land-based business, those kind of politics-led risks?
You're absolutely right, Fintan. It is a risk, and I think when you're in a role like mine, you put all sort of personal politics to one side. You treat the government as the government. You treat the opposition as the government in waiting, and I think that has always been the case, and it has to be the case. However, there is no doubt, I think, that land-based operators would not welcome, and it's kind of called an early election. I don't know when an early election stops being early, but I think the political commentators seem to think it's either in autumn, and I think November is probably, I think the betting markets have that as the narrow favourite for it to be in kind of November 2024 time. Were it to be in May, that would be a genuine concern, because I mean, the process, we've had the white paper, we've got the consultations. The vast majority of what we're looking to secure can be delivered by secondary legislation. So it doesn't require a whole heap of parliamentary time. It doesn't require the laying of new bills, but it does require the laying of statutory instruments, and they take time, and there is a queue, and there's any number of government departments who are, lining up in that queue to say, well, we want to get stuff done. We want to get stuff done. Were a general election to come early, an awful lot would depend on how far down the line those statutory instruments are, whether they've been passed. And then, there could be all change. And were there to be all change, whilst we've worked very, very hard with the senior sort of Labour parliamentarians to understand their views on gambling, and in particular their views on land-based casinos and reform and modernisations, everything becomes up for grabs. So without doubt, Fintan, that is something that we are watching with heightened interest. So when Rishi Sunak a week or two ago came out and sort of casually said that he is planning for an election in the second half of this year, I dare say a number of us sincerely hope that that is the case.
Got it. And obviously we should mention Rishi is a big Jilly Cooper fan.
Yeah, and I don't think that is necessarily linked to my appearance in Mount, but
It's a connection. It's a connection, right? It's, you know,
might be
it's a,
tenuous, but I see what you've done there, and I I'm not gonna hammer a nail into that.
so
So to
okay.
speak.
So when we we've had, obviously on the podcast we get lots of people from all different parts of the industry. We've had some wonderful guests from the Hippodrome in previous, particularly last year, things. And when we talked to, and particularly before the white paper was announced and the consultations and stuff started, there seemed to be two sides to the coin. So there seemed to be a very stressed online business, worried about all the dreadful things that are about to happen to them, and maybe quietly confident land-based side of the coin, which are like looking forward to this and let's get cracking and stuff. And it seemed to be really kind of two different ways of, same industry but very different businesses, and seem to be two different ways of approaching things. And I think when we look at the rank group, you guys kind of straddle online and land-based in different ways. How do you feel? I suppose the question I'm trying to get to is, when you look at the white paper, you would say that it's probably been very good, potentially very good for the land-based industry in the UK, particularly with the gaming machines modernization, like more machines, more money, and the electronic payments. I think would be the other big one that would have a massive effect. And when I look at the online guys, it's like, oh, it's affordability checks and all these kind of negative things. Why do you think, like, how have the land-based industry approached it differently or better, or how did they arrive at this outcome the way they have?
Yeah. So before I answer that, just to sort of give a sense of sort of Rank's business. So we are, whilst our Rank Interactive business is important and is growing, and certainly we have medium to long-term aspirations to grow it significantly, our digital business. At the moment, the vast majority of our revenues are derived from our land-based business. So actually, I don't disagree with how you've contextualized the question, Fintan. I think it is because of that split that in the round, our perception of the white paper is, when it was published, this will be a net positive for the group. We've said that publicly, and we stand by that. Of course, there are costs, and there is a tightening of regulation in the online space. It's been covered ad infinitum, so we'll leave that. In terms of the sort of journey to get there, in many ways, you can actually go back to the 2005 Act, which of course saw, prior to that, we know that gambling had to a large extent been sort of tolerated but not promoted, and then the 2005 Act sort of stripping away of an awful lot of the restrictions, which allowed then a number of things. And really the main narrative, I'm trying to avoid that word, but it's difficult to avoid it, has been around what happened to online gambling from 2005 to present day. And we've seen all of the arguments, and there's no need to rehearse them because they're well known to your listeners, I have no doubt. But for land-based, 2005 Act created, in effect, an experiment for casinos, the creation of 16 licenses, 8 large and 8 small, which had a much, much more modern customer proposition. And it was always the intention, and I don't think this is a controversial view, if you go back to select committees, it was always the intention that experiment at some point in the years that followed would be concluded, and there would be, without the need for a full once-in-a-generation Gambling Act review, a kind of coming together of the historic 1968 Act casinos. So I've got 51 casinos. All but one of them are legislated under 1968 Act laws. So archaic, over half a century old, blah, 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 blah. Now, that experiment was never finished. So the point that I'm getting to is the land-based arguments for modernisation were not rapidly pulled together when the government decided in December 2020, well, it was in their manifestos in 2019, but it was launched in 2020. The land-based industry didn't say, oh, crumbs, right, okay, we've got a review of gambling now. What the hell do we want and what the hell don't we want? And let's pull it all together. That had been building for the best part of 15 years. And there'd been various select committees and, that had all published a view that modernisation for this sector was necessary. So when you've got an argument that's been building for very many years and you've built up a huge catalogue of data I think one of the things that sometimes parts of the industry fail to do is they only go to politicians when they need them. What we've been doing for a very, very long time, it predates me, I only joined in 2018, but, the likes of Simon Thomas at the Hippodrome had been at this for a dozen years or more. The argument comes really naturally and it's really compelling. And you have a stack of business data to show what is happening in the event of a UK land-based casino industry that had been falling behind international competitors. So it's funny, really. So when I sort of look at the mix of my job, I worked at Ladbrokes for a very long time, and I remember one of the great sort of ambitions would be that you try to get leading politicians into the betting shops on things like Grand National Day, and it'd be a nice natural alignment and all this community stuff and tick, tick, tick. When I arrived at Rank, it was quite extraordinary because engaging with politicians. I hope my boss isn't listening to this because I'm going to say it's quite easy, but of course I want him to believe that it's extremely difficult and requires a great deal of skill. You can get people into casinos because you have something to show them. It's like the stigmata. You go in and you say, look, this is what player protection looks like. This is what it feels like. This is what it smells like. This is what it sounds like. This is what we have in our venues. This is the experience. Let me take you by the hand and I'll step you through it. In bingo clubs, goodness me, they write to you saying, please, can I come to your bingo club? Please, can I call the numbers? And then, a cynic might suggest that's because perhaps they see an opportunity to immerse themselves in what is quite rightly a wonderful social pastime that keeps communities cohesive. I've said that before. But it's not difficult to engage with parliamentarians in the land-based. The fact that you then have the opportunity to do that over a cup of tea or a nice meal or something like that is exactly... The industry should never apologise for telling a really good story about jobs, about communities and about investment. And you can do that in a venue, I think, perhaps a little bit more readily than maybe other forums.
Do you remember the story in The Guardian, probably 18 months or so ago now, about a politician who'd gone for dinner at a British casino and had then raised questions in Parliament? It had dinner at the casino, but it didn't even reach the figures for submission. What had basically happened, in my humble opinion, and for those of you who don't know this, maybe the casino in question was Les Ambassadeurs. They had the brilliant Tracy Damastani working there at the time. And Tracy is, Tracy used to chair the National Casino Forum in the UK and was a lobbyist, etc. And would have basically, Tracy hasn't told me this is me surmising this, would have basically got him in, shown him how shit works, the real impact of shit that's been suggested, things that might be a good idea. Have a look at this. Here's some information. Have some knowledge. Have a sandwich while you're here. And he goes away armed with actual knowledge. This is a fucking news story in a national newspaper. He didn't accept any gifts. There's no suggestion of any bribery or any shit like that. Politician goes and gets some education and then acts on it. Well, fuck me, yeah. Put that on your front page. Sorry.
As I recall, I think there are a couple of other sort of perhaps newsworthy elements to the framing of that letter.
I may be simplifying.
Maybe that's fine. But I think the serious point here is one of the accusations that is levelled at certain parts of the industry by its critics and perhaps some campaigners is that, they're sort of knee deep in lobbying, as if that is in some way inherently evil or unhelpful. I would counter that quite strongly. There are very strict, and quite rightly, very strict sort of frameworks as to what parliamentarians can do. But what we should be doing as an industry is telling our story. And a key constituent part to a key constituent audience are elected parliamentarians. So we should never apologise for that, and we should never row back from it. And that I think there's a way of doing it which is sort of robustly based in evidence rather than sort of necessarily the politics of it. But if we don't tell a story about the 8,000 people who we employ, about the communities that we support, who the hell is going to tell that story? Who is going to tell that story if we don't share it? And I think we have a duty, I have a duty to all the guys who work for Rank, that what they do, they work hard, they pay their taxes, they work in a regulated space. Of course, some people don't like it, right? But that shouldn't be a reason for us not to bang the drum loudly. And as long as that's done properly, I think that is the kind of society in which we want to live.
David, to be honest, I've been telling people that ask me what I do for a living that I'm a drug dealer because I'm so ashamed of working in the gambling industry.
Well, I've got a brother who is a professional musician. He used to be a cathedral organist, and my mum, when she would sort of go to church, say, what do your sons do? And she, my eldest son is this cathedral musician, spends his time in a cassock and a surplice and all of this. And what about your younger son, David? Oh, so a very, very bad line here. I'm joking. I'm sure she's. I think she said I was an accountant and then muttered turf accountant under her breath. But, and then when I went to Rank, of course, when I turned up at Rank, she was like, "Oh, brilliant! You make the films, don't you? You're like the big gong man at the beginning, all the Carry-On films by the Rank organisation." And I had to break it to her that I was based in Maidenhead rather than Hollywood. But I do think that we need to lift our chin. I've worked in this industry all my life. I'm sort of irrevocably devoted to it. I think it has moved on light. People say this, this is not the business of old. I joined in 2004. I predate the 2005 Gambling Act. I know what it looked like in the years that followed. And I now think that what we do is something to be very, very proud of. We are world leading in terms of regulation. And whilst you can find any number of examples that puncture a hole in that, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's untrue. And unfortunately, there is a enormous focus on all the wrongs of this industry, and largely through the good offices of new trade bodies like the BGC, who put themselves on the front line when it comes to things like criticism. At least we are standing up and talking about the good stuff that we do, and we should carry on doing that, even if people don't like it and find flaws in it.
I could not agree more. And in fact, I have a project which is similar to, well, I can't even talk about it yet, but when it comes, you'll know. You'll be like, oh yeah, he talked about that. Listen, something you mentioned earlier that I want to bring up, right? You said in the reforms, you specifically mentioned sports betting, right?
Yeah.
Now, a couple of questions about that, right? So in the UK, and we do have listeners all over the world, so I'm going to give a tiny bit of background. You said this is the only market in the world where you have casinos, but you can't have sports betting in the casinos, or whatever.
I think Macau might be the only other one, but I think there might be some cultural / political reasons as to why that may be. But every other casino in the world will have a sports betting facility of some description.
So it's kind of a 2 or maybe even a 3-pronged question. Let's call it a trident. Do you think, historically, do you think that the reasons for that being the case is because of the strength of the retail bookmaker in the UK? And let's face it, even now there's still a lot of retail bookmakers in the UK. Yeah. So they would have historically always had a very compelling argument. No, you can't do that because it'll fuck us. So there's that. Do you really think, given the existence of retail bookmakers and what that means culturally in the UK, do you really think that sports betting in casinos will be a big deal? Because I have some thoughts about how it could work, and I'll happily consult. I'm very cheap. And finally, and this is a tricky one. Now, we have been critical of the Betting and Gaming Council in the past, and I'll be honest with you, probably will be again in the future. One of my issues with them is that just because all of the industry, all of the businesses within their remit have gambling as a commonality, that doesn't mean that they all have the same common goal. Now, they represent those retail bookmakers. How does this sit within the BGC when, it's obviously direct? I've long said that the BGC does not represent the casino industry very well in the UK, and that's probably because the casino industry in the UK is possibly less of a personal interest for some people in the organisation. It generates less money than some other aspects of it, whatever the reasons are. Is that going to sit well? How's that going to work? Who are you going to piss off here?
Okay. Yeah, no, so plenty in that. Happy to deal with all of it. So, I mean, in terms of the LBOs and whether casinos having sports betting would bring LBOs to their knees, I don't know. I've been out of that parish for quite a while. But I don't know how many thousands of betting shops there are in the UK. What I do know is there are 118 casinos. It is a tiny proportion of what would be effectively a land-based sports betting opportunity. So I don't subscribe to the article that there would be a huge amount of stealing of lunch there. And for what it's worth, I don't think the LBOs believe that either. Why has it not happened hitherto? And I, unless I'm being very naive here, I don't think, and I worked for one for 14 years, I don't think there was a huge active campaign of LBOs seeking to block the advent of sports betting in land-based casinos. I just don't think the vehicle and the opportunity ever sort of came round. And actually, when there was the campaign for the 2005 Act, this probably wasn't a priority. And for what it's worth, actually, amongst land-based casinos, not all land-based casino operators agree that there is a huge opportunity here, which I think, John, touches on your question as to, could it be a big deal? Are you getting excited about something that couldn't be? To touch on that, and just to be clear, the 2005 Act casinos, of which there are 7 open, they can offer sports betting. So if you go to Victoria Gate in Leeds, or you go to Resorts World in Birmingham, Aspers in Stratford, or our Grosvenor Casino in Luton, there is sports betting in there. It's just in the vast majority of the other venues, well over 90% of casinos, there are not. Well, that is bananas, explaining that in some casinos you can have it, in some you can't. We kind of built out on the argument that this is bananas. Trust me, we did build out on it, and it got changed in the white paper. What I think will happen is that a one-size-fits-all solution to sports betting casinos would be a calamity. What might work in our flagship casino, the Vic on Edgware Road, is likely to be very different to perhaps a more boutique, smaller casino elsewhere in the country. So all of that work is ongoing. Now, in terms of, I think the last part was about kind of how well serviced land-based casinos have been. So when I joined, Grosvenor Rank were members of, let me get this right, the Bingo Association, representing our land-based bingo interests, the National Casino Forum, the NCF, and the RGA, representing our digital business. It was very clear in the aftermath of the FOBT debate that not least government, but a number of stakeholders, not least government, were, I think, getting a bit frustrated with the number of different voices that were all trying to sort of have their say. And without sort of revisiting the whole history of the creation of the BGC, and also acknowledging that in terms of our land-based bingo interests, we are still members of prominent members of the Bingo Association. We thought that, bringing the casinos into a newly formed trade body, which could not speak with one voice, because that is almost impossible, John. And I do take that point. There are very many differences amongst the sort of different verticals, but kind of have one sort of central point of input and feedback would be beneficial. The fact is, we've got a white paper published, and it has in it 2 or 3 of the most material modernizations that the industry has been seeking since 2005. So if the proof is in the pudding, I think it's been quite a successful journey in that regard. That's not to say we're over the line, the consultation, devil in the detail, all of that. But one of the very, very important parts has been sitting around the table with category A operators, whether it be 365 and Tain. When you're around that same table, you share with them what you're trying to do, and that generally, without being too naive, is more successful in ensuring that nobody's blindsided. I think historically, sometimes over here, someone was doing something which was felt like a threat to these people over here, and it became very acrimonious. The industry would squabble like hell, and I think that is something that we, and I mean Rank here, have fought very, very hard to do, which is to take other operators with us on our journey. So we will have them in and say, this is what we're trying to do. This is why we're trying to do it. This is what it means for our business. And you can work out what it means for your business. And I think sometimes when you tell that story, it's like, okay, no problem with that. We're not going to go and try and, throw a grenade in on that project from the sidelines. And we have a white paper published end of April last year that, as far as we're concerned, is reasonably cohesive.
That's a great answer.
Can't remember what I said, but thank you.
John, you're on mute, mate.
Fuck, I just wasted some really good material there too. I was saying you'll be able to listen to this episode later this week. Our other guest this week has been the inimitable Paul Sculfer, talking about.
Oh, great man!
Talking about all sorts of stuff, haven't we, Fintan? One of the things we were talking about after we finished recording was how in the US, one of the smartest things I've seen a business do in years is Circa licensing their sportsbook model. I think that's absolute genius. And, it's raised the bar in a big, big way. They've made event sportsbooks.
Yeah.
And I was saying to Paul that it's really difficult to find somewhere to go and watch sport in the UK that's not shit. I don't mean the sport could still be shit, but the venue needs to be. And there is space in this country for a good event sports venue. And it becomes a marketing story for the casino, etc., etc. I think that could really work in this country. I really do. Especially given that most of our sports are played through the winter and the fucking weather's shit.
Yeah. I think in fairness to the Hippodrome, Sunday nights in the Hippodrome watching NFL is a damn good experience. There's an awful lot to enjoy that. They've got the state-of-the-art screens. It's comfortable. I'll tell you where I agree with you, John. I think customers are going to become more and more discerning. They are not going to accept to watch Monday Night Football on just an HD screen with a sort of heated up panini. They are going to want comfortable seating. They're going to want either the opportunity to watch it with their mates, or if they want to watch it with a degree of privacy and not be hassled by all of the clatter that's sort of going around in the background. I think customers will demand that. I think when it comes to casinos, I think I made the point earlier, they're all different shapes and sizes. What will work for one won't work for another. And it's just identifying the best sports betting proposition to put into different spaces. And for some, you might find that not particularly sensational. It might be self-service betting terminals. For others, it might be something significantly more exciting than that. So yeah, I mean, we're excited about this. We need to get this right. I don't think, the casinos that have done it hitherto will all fall over themselves saying we've absolutely nailed the sports betting proposition. I think, but now it's going to be done at scale. I think there's probably some dedicated resource looking at how to get this right.
I do need to just bring up one thing that you mentioned there, David. Heated up panini. You've obviously not been to any pubs in Shropshire. We dream of heated paninis.
The problem is with heated up paninis, they're always scorching hot when they get to you, aren't they? They kind of.
It's the microwave.
It is. It's the microwave.
The only paninis you get in Shropshire is old 1982 World Cup sticker albums. That's the only kind of paninis we have.
See what you've done
Which
there.
Was the biggest selling sticker collection in the history of stickers.
82?
Yeah.
Good Lord.
True story. One of my best mates used to do sticker collections for...
I'd have had a small bet that 86 would have been bigger, but there you go.
82 is the one that made stickers what they are today.
Okay.
I'm told. He could be full of shit. He's not. He's a lovely guy. Chris, if you're listening, I'm sorry. I didn't mean it. David, I guess there's just a couple of very minor piddling questions to close on. Are you familiar with the work of Kevin Costner?
To an extent.
Do you have a favourite Kevin Costner film?
Well, what did he do other than The Bodyguard?
Come on. There we go.
Jesus shit.
It's always The Bodyguard.
What did he do other than The Bodyguard? Was he in Last of the Mohicans, or was that not him?
That was Daniel Day-Lewis.
No, okay. Perhaps I'm mixing up my films. Oh, most certainly mixing them. Tell you what, ask the question again. David, are you familiar with the works? Is that what I'm thinking of? There you go. Are you familiar, Dave, with the works of Kevin Costner? No, I'm sorry, John, I'm not. No, who's Kevin?
What about Michael Douglas?
Michael Duggar or Michael Douglas?
Douglas.
Michael Douglas. I wouldn't fancy myself on Mastermind with either of those guys.
That's disappointing. I'm not even going to ask
Who
you
did
if
he
you
marry?
watched Cobra Kai.
Jones?
He did, yes.
Are they still married?
Yeah.
Very much so.
Wow.
I know. Oh, for us all.
In fact, post-marriage, he did arguably his greatest ever performance when he played Liberace. Which, if you haven't seen Behind the Candelabra, it's well worth a watch.
Okay.
But anyway,
To say the notes that I'm making here are eclectic.
Never come back on. Underline 3 times.
Do not answer.
Oh, sorry, they were the questions, were they? They were the piddling questions.
Yeah, I told you they were piddling.
Oh, right, okay. I thought
Wasn't
they were
kidding.
a precursor to the piddling questions, but they were They were.
What arts do you enjoy?
Arts.
Arts.
I've got a 6-year-old daughter and a 4-year-old son. I don't have time for the arts.
Have you seen Bluey?
I
That is
love
good.
Bluey.
That
I
is great.
love Bluey.
It's
Bluey
phenomenal.
Bluey is a work of genius. The fact that my children
Isn't
enjoy
it?
it is literally just a minor detail. Bluey is brilliant.
100%. The episode Sleepy Time is one of the best written things I've ever seen of any kind.
So
It's the one
yesterday
where,
morning we watched chess, and we watched Bedroom. I tried to limit them to 2 episodes, and then I have kind of 3 to myself. But chess and Bedroom are good.
So my kids, when they sit down to watch something, the youngest will usually suggest Bluey, but they all totally get into it, and they're like 11, 8, and 6. It doesn't get old. I mean, it's
brilliant.
Time is
it's absolutely brilliant. It's a perfect sort of antidote to Mr. Tumble.
Yes.
Oh yeah, I've got nothing against Mr. Tumble. He's very good at what he does, but he is very firmly aimed at it.
Oh, have we lost John?
No, I was just stunned. He's a neighbour of yours.
Yeah. Not like next door neighbour, but doesn't live far away. My next door neighbour, not quite. Yeah, it doesn't live far away.
Wow.
Okay, here's one for you. Can I ask a piddling question? If you had Justin Fletcher not far away over here, and you had Jamiroquai not far over there, and they both invited you to Christmas drinks, where would you go?
Justin Fletcher.
Justin Fletcher.
Okay, so it's a hypothetical question.
He's got a darkness to him. I definitely want to see him in a couple of years now.
Do you?
But also,
Mr.
Jamiroquai.
Neither of them have invited me or my wife, as far as I'm aware, to either of their houses, but they're both neighbours.
Mr. Jamiroquai, right? He's got a very well documented passion for fancy schmancy supercars, right?
He does.
And I have met one other person with a significant collection of supercars in my life, and he would not fucking shut up about them, despite the fact that I have no interest whatsoever in cars. So, yeah, sure, tell me about your latest car. Really, because, look, read my face. I mean, I'm clearly delighted to be listening. Running the risk of sitting with that nice Mr. JK and having that same old fucking boring shit, I'd be, give me Mr. Tumble.
I'd rather go to Justin Fletcher. Okay.
No question.
Okay. Well, it's not a problem that I've had to wrestle with.
Only one of them's going to be cracking out. Only one of them's going to be breaking out the ketamine, and that is Mr. Tumble.
Right. Okay. We've reached a natural end, haven't we, to this?
I think we have. Clowns in the K-hole. That's also called a full stop.
David Williams, Rank Group, thank you so much.
Hang on, I'm just making a note here. Never again agree to this. Okay, yeah, fine. Okay, carry on. No, I really enjoyed it. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, well, Fintan.
Brilliant. Thanks, David.
Thank you, guys. Cheerio. Bye-bye.
Don't move.